Hello, my writing gym friends. Ooh, ooh, ooh. That's not me being a monkey. That is me exercising, I guess. Here I am in our classroom. I hope you're enjoying writing gym so far. I'm going to eat a piece of gum because I just am. I don't know why I'm starting my video that way, but I just drank coffee. My breath stinks. Anyway, here's what we're doing today. If you are watching this video, it is because you are part of my main ideas, finding a main idea to focus on group. And you are going to be working on finding something to zoom in on in your writing. So, when you are writing a story, the reason that you're writing a story is for a reader to read it and find something that really comes to life for them. So, to find a scene that they are able to listen to the dialogue that two characters are having, or in the case of a personal narrative, to find to have a scene where they can hear what you're saying to somebody else and hear how you're interacting with the people that are around you in this moment that you're trying to tell them about. So the reason that readers like stories is because authors write with what we call pacing. So that's the word that you can see circled on your screen. And actually, what you see on your screen right now is a copy of the worksheet that you're going to be working on in a few minutes. I'm actually showing it to you and I'm going to work with it in this video, and that's going to help you to work on it by yourself in a few minutes. So, when you're reading a story you're enjoying, it means the author has good pacing. And my goal for you is to figure out which scenes need to be focused on, like which scenes you're going to stop and give a ton of details for, like dialogue and descriptions of what things look like and action and motion. Like, which scenes are you going to stop and stretch out with lots of details? Which scenes need that? And which step can we skip over and transition through to get to the next thing? So, here's what you need to know. Not every part of a story is worth telling. Like, when you're telling a story to someone in real life, like suppose you're sitting down with your friend over lunch and they're like, "How was your weekend?" You're not going to sit there and be like, "Well, on Friday at 3, I got in the car and I sat there for 25 minutes and we got stuck in traffic for about 10 minutes. And then when we got on the expressway, it was kind of fast for 5 minutes and then it was a little slow for 7 minutes. And then after that, we got on Fingerboard Road and it was quick for 2 minutes." Like, you're not going to tell that part of the story because it doesn't need telling, right? You're going to be like, "Well, we got home, and when we got there, it turned out that my dog had gotten out of the backyard, and it was crazy because she was in the neighbor's yard knocking over all of their Christmas decorations, and nobody could get her out." Why would you skip to that moment? Well, you would skip to it because it is the most interesting and funny, dramatic, and meaningful part of what happened when you got home from school on Friday. So you're not telling everything. You don't need to share everything that happened. Instead, you're just selecting the most funny, interesting, meaningful stuff. And that's the same way it is in stories. Otherwise, the books would be 4,000 pages because the author would be telling us absolutely everything that happened to every character. So some personal narratives are way too long. And you might have seen my comments that this is really long. You needed to zoom in on a specific moment. You didn't need to tell me everything about your whole trip. What I want is one moment to be stretched out with details. So here's a really good example of something like that. And then I'm going to have you help me figure out which of these moments should the author have stretched out into scenes with dialogue and description and action and more details. And which ones do you want to see that because they're more important than the others? Okay. So here's a personal narrative. And this is the story that you're going to use as you complete this worksheet. When my family went to Africa last summer, we had a great time. It was my grandmother's dying wish to send us to Africa because it was a dream she always had throughout her life. I remember when she was in the hospital, very weak after her last round of chemotherapy for her cancer, and she told us to have fun. "I'm sorry that I can't be there, but please remember to take pictures on the safari and think of me," she whispered. After arriving at the airport to Nigeria, so all of a sudden I'm like, wait a hot minute. We were just on your grandmother's deathbed and she's whispering and it sounds super sad. And then you're at the airport in Nigeria. Me as a reader, like, that's really sad and dramatic. Like, I really kind of wish that the reader had stretched that out. Not because I like hearing about dead grandmas, but because that seems like a scene that they should have spent time in. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. After arriving at the airport in Nigeria, we had to take a 5-hour bus ride to the site of the safari tour office, where we met our Maasai guide. It was nighttime, and the animal sounds were creeping me out. We heard a lot of different sounds that I had never heard before. My heart was pounding. That is a lion, the guide Jake leaned in and said as a low tone and as in a low tone, as my family was gathering their luggage, but do not tell your family. They look scared. We then heard a huge howl. After a night of strange and terrible noises, during which my sister and I, who were sharing a treehouse, which was hard to get used to, didn't really sleep, we got into a Jeep. Wait a minute. So, this author gave me a lot of information about animal sounds creeping people out. And then the guide is like, that's a lion, but don't tell your family they look scared. And they hear a huge howl. And then they hear strange and terrible noises throughout the night. And no one slept. And then they get in a Jeep. To me, that could be a whole story. Just this story about these unfamiliar, horrifying wild animal noises, this author could tell me an entire story about called My First Night in Africa. And it could be 2 pages, and it could just be that moment stretched out like slime. And in it, it could be dialogue, inner thinking, descriptions of sounds and their feelings, descriptions of the night house they had a hard time getting used to, and action. It could go from getting there until the following morning. That would be an amazing personal narrative. This is a side story that you should not bury inside of a whole story about their trip to Africa. It should be its own story, in my opinion. Okay. We got into a Jeep and saw 5 animals I had never seen up close. The safari trip was full of giraffes, rhinoceroses, lions, hippopotamus, and zebra. They were so beautiful. I thought a lot about my grandma and her dream to go on safari and heard her voice in my head a lot. Okay, it seems significant as well. They're talking a lot about grandma. After 2 days of seeing animals and eating strange foods, such as the time I ate a goat's heart that was still beating and drank its blood, which is a custom for the tribe we visited in Kenya. Okay, hold your horses, hold your goat's hearts. What? Okay, so this person ate a goat's heart that was still beating and then also drank its blood because this was a custom for a tribe that they visited in Kenya. A, gross. B, that seems like something I want to hear a lot more about because I have never, ever, 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 ever in my life heard a story like that before. They be like, okay, that's normal. I'm going to tuck it into a paragraph and like be like, bye. I'm going to pretend like nothing happened. Yes, please. I want to hear that badly. So what they need to do is just take that. Forget about the noises and the lions. Just take that story and stretch that out. Give me that. Give me that story. So this ate a goat's heart with still beating, drank its blood, which was a custom. I want to hear about that dinner. That's its own story. So start when you sit down. Tell me how that happened. Give it dialogue. Give me customs. Give me the family's reaction. Give me being served this dinner. Give me hearing about the custom, being grossed out, being brave, what have you. Yes, I want that story all by itself, please. Thank you very much. It was time to take a plane to South Africa, which was also beautiful. We did cliff diving there. Okay, thanks for burying that in. That's something nobody gets to do. And spent the most meaningful evening sprinkling her ashes off of a cliff near where she was born in Johannesburg. Okay, this person clearly loved their grandma very, very much. Although this is not a beating goat's heart with blood, I think very much that this is its own story. Sprinkling your grandmother's ashes off of a cliff in Johannesburg, South Africa, is not something very many people get to do. This also could be its own story. It could start with a little bit of background story about the trip to Nigeria, but then I could have 2 pages of just this beautiful memorial ash sprinkling service. Absolutely, no question. All the family remembering the grandma, hearing about the beautiful, I'm sure, gorgeous scenery. That is the story I want to be stretched out. I don't need all of these details about the trip. Even though it's fascinating, this person has really written a 5-paragraph essay about their trip to Africa. They have not written me a story from their trip to Africa. They have not written me a narrative. A narrative is a zoomed in story on one moment that puts the reader right into the scene with dialogue, description, actions, and details. So, holy smokes. This author had lots of opportunities to zoom in and tell us way better stories about certain absolutely fascinating moments of this trip. But somehow they seem to think they had to tell us the whole trip as if it was a 5-paragraph essay. But guess what? They didn't. The assignment was a personal narrative, one moment told as a story with details. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to choose 4 moments from this story, the one that I just read you and the one that you're now going to reread. Okay, so you'll have to reread it. That you would have loved to have this author really zoom in on and write out as their own story by including more details such as dialogue, description, actions, and motion to bring us right into that scene with them. And they could be 4 that I mentioned to you, or they could be totally different ones, whichever. And then I want you to write them here. So choose the first moment from that story that you want them to stretch out and put in dialogue, inner thinking, descriptions, action. Choose another one, choose a third, choose a fourth, and write them there. Then you are going to choose one of those, and then you're going to write the scene. Zoom in on it by adding dialogue, descriptions, movement, action. Now, for you, this isn't your personal narrative, so you're basically writing a fiction scene, okay? Based on whatever details from your imagination that you want, okay? But you're going to bring, oops, I made a mistake here. Hang on, I made a mistake. You're gonna watch me fix it. Okay, hang on. Boop, boop. Just create a scene that brings not the reader to life, brings the scene into life. So I made an example for you below. Read the example below first to see what I mean. So one of the moments I picked for my list up here is this moment where the author says, here we go. After a night of strange and terrible noises during which my sister and I, who were sharing a tree house, which was hard to get used to, didn't really sleep. Okay, so I chose that. So I put it down here. Okay, moment, my sister and I getting used to the treehouse. So I made this up. I wasn't there. This isn't my story. I made it up. All right, I started with dialogue. That's an easy thing for you to do too. So here's my made up scene that I wish this person had written into their story. I made it up. I freaking absolutely cannot sleep when we are so high up, my sister complained, and I heard her tossing and turning in her bed. Shut up, Maria. It's too hot to move, I grumbled. The air was still and suffocating. Being 100 feet up in a tree didn't help. Did no one ever tell the Maasai that heat rises? Don't they know that heat rises? Maria snarled, and I heard her slap at her skin. Ouch, she said. Bug, she reported. Why are these tree houses so high up? She asked loudly and bitterly. There's a million bugs up here. Because of lions, moron, our big brother Charlie called from his own treehouse 50 feet away. Now shut up and go to sleep. Even in the dark, I could sense her eyes widen, as did my own. The thought had never occurred to me. Within half a second, Maria had leapt into my bed, shaking. We clutched each other. Forget the heat. We didn't want to be food. So I took this one line this person skipped over about getting used to sleeping in a treehouse, and I brought it to life with dialogue and some action, tone of voice, description. So I made it much more like a movie that you feel like you're in than a detail someone passed over in a 5-paragraph essay about their vacation. Because this, what I just wrote, this is a story. Okay, before they were just racing through the details of their vacation. So, do you see how the scene that I wrote is stretched out? The author thought the reader would like to see this scene, the adjustment to such a different environment, so they did not rush through it. They paced it out more slowly and added dialogue, the author being me. Authors do not pace out every scene, just the ones that really emphasize the main idea or have the most humor, significance, conflict, or drama. Okay? So you're going to pick one of these 4 moments that you thought the author of this should stretch out, and I want you to tell it with all different details to bring it to life. All right? You're going to hang on to your worksheets when you are all done. And then when you're done writing your narrative that you're writing for Writer's Gym, you're going to staple these onto it. All right? Thank you for paying attention during my video, and I will see you later.